Hello and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with one co-host this week.
I'm Joe Lallo.
And Jeff couldn't make it, but we've got a great guest for you, so you won't even notice Jeff is gone. We've got Damon Courtney from BookFunnel, and we've had him before. We were talking about using free ebooks to grow your mailing list last time, and this time we're going to talk about some advanced stuff, like selling direct from your site, and kind of cultivating a rabid fan base, and also some of the new stuff going on with mailing lists and what you need to do to be compliant with the European, what are the initials?
GDPR.
That's it. Damon said it a lot more than I have, so he may even know what they stand for.
General Data Protection Regulations.
Excellent, excellent.
We've been neck deep in this stuff for months, and it is not pretty and it's not exciting at all.
All right, well, that's a good tease. The listeners can look forward to that segment.
Get ready, everybody. Regulations are coming.
All right. Well, why don't you just remind us, well, tell us a little bit about yourself in case people haven't seen episode 88 yet or listened to it.
So my name is Damon Courtney. I'm the creator of BookFunnel. I'm also a fantasy author, which we talked about on the last podcast. So I listen to the podcast here pretty regularly as a fantasy and soon to be hopefully science fiction. I'm actually working on a series with a buddy of mine. I don't have as much time to write these days as I would like. I spend all my time writing code, but I'm hoping to get back into publishing some newer stuff as I kind of miss it, especially as I go to conferences. You know, BookFunnel has kind of been going to a few more conferences in the last year, and it's hard to be around other authors who are super excited about what they're writing, and they're telling me about the books that they're publishing and the things that they're working on, and then go home and it's like, well, I mean, I'm working on GDPR regulations, and that's cool stuff too, guys. So I'm looking forward to doing something. We're working on like a little space opera series. So soon to be sci-fi and fantasy, the kissing cousins of genres. I have a fantasy trilogy that I published a few years ago, and unfortunately haven't had a chance to publish anything since, as I've been working on BookFunnel. And BookFunnel, for those who don't know, the quick rundown is it's an ebook delivery service. We work outside of the main store system. So while you can sell your books on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Kobo and wherever you want, we handle the kind of delivery that happens outside of that sort of traditional store system. We like to think of ourselves as the indie place to distribute your books.
Awesome. Well, it's great to hear that you're working on some sci-fi and doing a little writing after getting inspired at these conventions. Why don't you tell us, it's been about 2 years, I think, since we last had you on. So do you want to talk about some new developments at BookFunnel?
In 2 years, a tremendous amount. So I think that probably the biggest things that are like really sort of exciting is that, you know, people are still out there building their mailing lists, which is really cool. But a lot of people have kind of reached that point now where they're starting to build their mailing list, or they have something sort of built up. And now the biggest thing that we see, aside from new authors that are still coming in, I mean, it's still pretty impressive how many people are just discovering self-publishing. People that we get email inquiries from all the time that some that have no books published whatsoever, and some that might have 50 books traditionally published, and they're just now sort of working into the self-publishing game and realizing that, with traditional publishing, that whole concept of like mailing lists and like talking direct to your fans wasn't really something that they sort of did or really built upon. And now that they get into sort of the indie publishing, they realize, oh, I need to do that sort of stuff. It's you can't just slap a book up on Amazon and wait for the money to roll in. That doesn't fly anymore. And so we, aside from those sort of new users, the big questions that we get are from the authors who've already they've started building their list, and they either have a few thousand people on their list, or it's slowly growing, and they're getting organic signups from their books, and they're joining with other authors in their genres. And now they're trying to figure out what do I do with all of these people? So I've gone out and I've built this list, and now what do I do with them? So we've been working on features that can kind of help through that, and that's kind of what you talked about in your intro, is sort of this. We have this running blog series we've been doing about this idea of making super fans, turning, that sort of reader, that lead that you got on your list, and getting them to actually read your stuff and be a fan of your stuff. And we've built a lot of features around that sort of stuff.
So we've had folks on that are giving away a free ebook or novella or something to get people on their list, and also that are giving away bonuses. Well, it's actually usually always to get people on the list. It might be promoting it at the end of their book one, like, hey, if you want the secret prequel novella, here's the BookFunnel link. You got to sign up for my list. Are there some other ways that you're seeing people do creative things with BookFunnel that help grow them into rabid fans?
Well, so the getting them on the list is kind of the first part, and we recommend when authors tell us, how do I get people to join my list? The best way you can possibly do it is organically, putting links in the back of your books that offer some sort of reader magnet, like a novella. Prequel novellas work great if you write in series. If you don't write in series, then extended epilogues. So if you did like standalones, especially like in the romance genre, it's hard to do a romance series because you expect romance readers want the protagonist to get together at the end of the book. And so what's sort of your follow-up if you're not writing in a series? A lot of romance authors will do a sort of extended epilogue. So something, the book gets its happily ever after. It gets the complete ending so that nobody's left hanging. They don't feel like they didn't get the whole story. But then there's just a little bit more story if you want to join my list. So, which is great because they've just gotten to the end of hopefully a book that they really enjoyed reading, and they want to find out what that next piece is. And you say, hey, get this extended epilogue. I don't offer this in any bookstores. You can only get it by joining my list, by becoming a fan. And then, of course, some people will join, get the freebie, and then maybe unsubscribe. But presumably now, especially when you're building organically, that person has already gotten to the end of your book. Hopefully they actually want to be on your list because they like you. Most people don't get to the end of the book and go, what a crappy book. I want to find out what happens next, right? So you get to the end of that book and you actually liked it, and then you see that the author is offering you something else to just sign up for their list. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I'll give that a try. And that's absolutely the best traffic that you can get. Those are people that are actually coming in that have read your books, instead of, using Facebook ads is a great way to get some leads, but that's really what they are. They might join onto your list, but they really should be segmented off in a separate part, in a separate welcome sequence, because they are a lead. They haven't read your book. They don't know anything about you. They don't know anything about your book. And you now have to convert that lead to turn them into a fan. So the first thing would be to try to get them to read the book. They just downloaded a freebie, and now try to get them to, through your welcome sequence, and introduce yourself and introduce your books. I know that as a fantasy reader, I wouldn't say that I like a very particular type of fantasy. Obviously, fantasy is dragons and wizards and elves, and there's all kinds of fantasy, but I'm a pretty traditionally epic high fantasy sort of reader. But once I see what kind of books you have, there are some that I don't like as much as others. I'm not really into the grimdark fantasy like Game of Thrones, for those of you who don't know the series. That's not my favorite kind of writing, although I have enjoyed a few series that were in that sort of subgenre, I guess. I don't know if you could call it a subgenre. But and so as you're introducing your books to me, if you kind of let me know that, in my books, the heroes are heroic. And while not always black and white, heroes are heroes and bad guys are bad guys. Well, that tends to be the kind of fantasy that I like. And so that already is tempting me in a way that just picking up a book and reading a description may not, because I don't know enough about, just from your book description, whether that's my kind of fantasy. And so once you get them to read it, then the biggest thing that we see authors doing is just kind of offering a few of those little freebies, writing a little short story and giving it to their list. That's a great way to keep fans happy, especially if you're a fantasy writer who's not as fast. I say fantasy, romance, any genre really. But especially if you're writing in series and it takes you longer than a few months to get that next book in series out, throwing out a short story every month that just sort of keeps them interested in your world is a great way to make real fans. Everybody loves free stuff. But at the same time, getting that little free stuff and knowing that you can't get that anywhere except from your list makes people kind of want to stick around,
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that you don't necessarily have to do a whole novella or a short story for bonus stuff. I've done the second epilogues too, and I think in one of them they were baking brownies on the spaceship. And I hear 5,000 people go download them baking brownies because they just want to spend more time with the characters, and they
Sure.
don't mind that it's not a complete story, that maybe it's just a couple of scenes that you put together.
Well, and it's nice because, especially, I know I probably talk a lot about writing in series, but if anybody listens to the podcast here, and if you've listened to just about anybody else, I honestly, I find it really odd when I do come across a standalone in science fiction and fantasy. They're almost always series. The readers tend to be series readers, and so the beauty of writing a little 2,000 or 3,000 word short story is you don't need to explain your world. They're already invested in your world. They already know how the magic works. They know how the rifles work. They know how everything works. So you can pop off a quick short story without all that extra exposition. They're already into your world. They're already into your stuff. They know how all that stuff works. You don't even have to introduce characters. You can pick a side character from somewhere in the books and give them their own little 2,000 word short story, and readers love that stuff. But you don't have to introduce anything. You can almost just start right in the middle and then go through 2,000 words, and they're with you the whole way.
Definitely. And I think last fall you guys introduced kind of making it easier for authors to sell direct from their website.
Yeah.
I know that's something a lot of people are wanting to like become a little less reliant on Amazon and maybe take things into their own hands. Could you talk about how that's going and if you're actually seeing authors selling ebooks and making money that way?
Yeah, so we introduced that last September, and it was the number one feature request in all of BookFunnel the entire time that we've been open. We've been open just over 2 years now, about 2.5 years, and I mean probably the week that we opened our doors that we got our first email saying, "Can you please deliver my sales?" And it took us a little while to build it because we were working on building other features, but yeah, we did finally build that. And the way that we built it was that we built a feature called delivery action. So BookFunnel doesn't actually do the sale of the book at all, which means that we actually don't take any cut of the money. We don't even see the money. That's not in our hands. Instead, you can sell through the various platforms that are out there that have already solved this problem. The taking money and selling things online is a solved problem. It was the ebook delivery part that was really hard. Once you sold something and somebody was willing to buy it from you, how do you get the book to them? So that's the part that we're really good at. So we handled that part. So we integrated with Sells and Shopify and WooCommerce and these big platforms that you can use. And yeah, I would say probably the most surprising thing is that we built the sales feature because people kept asking us for it. But last year before we released it, I truthfully, honestly thought it was a big waste of time. I didn't think that anybody was really I didn't think that readers wanted to buy books direct from authors. Like I thought, they're not going to want to do that. Everybody loves their books on Amazon or Kobo or Barnes & Noble, wherever they read, that's where they want to live. So they're not going to want to go buy this book direct from the author. And I was really, really wrong. Since we launched it in September, up until about now, I think the last time I checked was a few weeks ago, and we had delivered, again, we don't sell the book, but we deliver it once it is sold, and we've delivered over 15,000 books. That's pretty incredible. I was a little blown away by that number because I would not have expected that we would have more than a few hundred sales. And seeing what readers say, because readers talk to us all the time, they really like buying from their own authors. They like the pitch that basically says, "Hey, I know you can buy the book anywhere, but if you buy it from me, I get a little bigger cut, and I also, threw in a little short story at the end of the book just for people who buy it direct from me." And readers love that. They love getting more story, and they love supporting their authors. And I wouldn't have thought that would be the case, but I'm happy to be proven wrong.
That's the nice thing, like being a service provider is if someone asks for a new feature, you don't really have to figure out if you think it'd be worthwhile. If enough people think it'll be worthwhile, it's their job to figure out how to make it work.
Exactly.
Now, for people who are selling, you mentioned how you do delivery. You don't actually do the payment handling, but a lot of people might be interested if they're selling. They're concerned maybe about the bookkeeping and whether or not they're going to have to keep track of sales and figure out sales tax. Or any of the people that you are integrated with handle sales tax or anything like that?
Sure. So the big platforms like Sales and Shopify, they have their own processes for handling sales tax, particularly if you want to do, if you're, most of our authors are in the US, so most of them are worried about US sales tax and things like that. And in most states, US sales tax is pretty simple. They have stuff set up for that. The biggest one that other people worry about is VAT, which is the value added tax that you get from countries in the European Union. And for sales like that, if people are concerned, one of the partnerships that one of the companies that we integrate with is called PayHip. And PayHip is probably the easiest one to set up. We actually list in our article on our help base, we list the providers in order of easy to hard, and we support PayPal directly. So if you want to do everything through PayPal, it's really DIY. You've got to build your own page, your own sales page. You got to kind of do it all yourself, but you have the most control over the payment and the delivery and all that sort of stuff. But the nice thing about PayHip is that they are a UK company, and the way that they've set their system up, they work more like Amazon does. You are not selling your book through them. You are giving them you are granting them license to sell the book on your behalf, which means that they collect the VAT from countries where if the reader is coming in from a VAT country, they collect that. And then even better, they remit the payments back to the European Union and make sure that all the taxes go to the right countries. As an added bonus, because they are a company in the EU, because they are a UK company, not a US company, they are the actual seller, not the author. So they don't have to collect US or Canadian or Australian sales tax because they don't have any arrangements with the US where they have to collect those taxes. So they take an extra 5% cut on top of what you would get if you just sold directly through like PayPal. But for that extra 5%, they handle all the taxes and everything else. So we tell people, if you're really worried about that stuff, you should probably look into them. If you want to do all that stuff and you have you feel like you have your accounting in order, then you can absolutely sell through the other platforms, and they have their own setup to handle those taxes.
I'm glad that you integrate with multiple things, and it's interesting and handy because so much of, particularly for an indie author, so much of what you do is a balance between, well, how much of it do I want to actually do myself versus how turnkey can it be, and where do my prices lie? So it's good to have flexibility on basically everything.
Well, and we know that if we had gone to build that ourselves, then the first thing that would have happened is people begin to request all the features that they have on all those other platforms. Well, can you set up a whole bookstore for me? Shopify lets me set up my own entire bookstore. Can I sell paperbacks through you? And then you keep their address and handle all that stuff. Well, Shopify and Sells will do all of that for me. And if I run WooCommerce on my own site, then I can sell coffee mugs too. We so didn't want to get into that business when the business that we're in is ebook delivery. And what's really great is that we didn't actually plan it this way, but the way that the delivery actions are designed, they're designed in such a way that we get a notification that the item was sold. And then BookFunnel turns around and in that notification, BookFunnel knows which book to deliver as a result of that sale. What's nice is that we don't actually care what that sale was. It doesn't have to be an ebook that you sold. We have authors now that are selling like signed paperbacks of their books. And then when you buy the signed paperback, you get the ebook for free. BookFunnel delivers the ebook alongside the paperback. We have authors that sell tote bags and coffee mugs, and they throw in a free novella or a free short story when they sell those items because you buy your coffee mug and then you get an email from BookFunnel that says, hey, here's your free.
That's actually what I was going to ask you next, because we've talked about on here how just setting up a bookstore on your site with like all the books that are exactly the same as on Amazon, people might not want to go through the extra effort. But I assume if you've got authors doing like advanced, like I've done some with Patreon and I'm doing 2 weeks early, they get it if they sign up there. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing a lot of authors doing advanced copies or kind of special editions?
I know that you're doing the advanced copies, and we have a few other authors who are doing that, especially the authors who are exclusive with Amazon in Kindle Unlimited. They are selling their books themselves before it goes exclusive with KU. And they're actually doing really well because they had built their reader list before they sort of went exclusive with Amazon. So they have readers on their list that are not Amazon readers. They have readers that they picked up from iBooks, picked up from Barnes & Noble and Kobo. And those readers, they don't want to buy from Amazon. They already have an e-reader that they like, or they just don't. Some people just don't like Amazon. That those authors are saying, hey, when the book releases on the 1st, it's going to be exclusive through Amazon. But for 2 weeks before it goes exclusive, you can buy it right here from me. And some readers, even Amazon readers, will buy it right from you because they want to get it 2 weeks early. If you're true rabid fans, they don't want to wait 2 weeks. They want to get it now. The biggest ones that we've seen more of are people who are either doing big sort of temporary discounts. So they put together maybe book 1 through 3 in their series and they sell it for 99 cents. Well, they don't want to do that on Amazon. They don't want to list those or the other bookstores. They don't want to offer this box set at that low of a discount on all the different bookstores. So they are saying, hey, you can buy it direct from me this weekend only. You can get the first 3 books for $1. Or they're putting together, we have a couple of authors that have really big box sets, 8, 10, 12 books in a set, and they don't box those up anywhere else because, for those who don't know, once you go over the $10 price threshold on Amazon, they chop your royalty rate in half. So instead of getting 70% of the sale, you get 35%. So there's almost no one who wants to sell anything over $9.99 on Amazon because they just chop your royalty in half. So they don't box anything up that big. They might box if they had a 10-book series, they might box like 3 and 3 and 3 and then 1, or 3 and 3 and 4 or something like that. But when they're selling direct, all the profit is yours if you took and boxed up 10 books and sold them for $20, then you're giving your readers a really great discount because those books might be $40 or $50 if you buy them individually on Amazon, but you can buy it direct from me for $20 and you'll actually make more money selling your own box set of 10 for $20 than you would if you sold the thing for $50 on Amazon. Because we don't take a cut of the sales. So all you have to pay is the transaction fee, which works out to, on a $20 sale, would work out to 90 cents. So you take $19.10 of a $20 sale. So yeah, and they sell a lot of those. The authors who are doing those bigger box sets are making really good money off those.
That's something I still need to try. I've been meaning to do it on Kobo and some of the sites where they don't cap it at $9.99. And I even have art. So it's going to happen, guys. I'm going to have all 8 books in my Dragon Blood box set. So now I have to, I'm curious because like I said, I've been doing Patreon as a way to exactly what you were saying, give away the or sell the advanced copies before I make them exclusive on Amazon. Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts on, because I've been wondering, should I stick with Patreon, which is a little confusing because they charge on the 1st. So if you had it ready to go on the 7th, it's 3 weeks before your people get charged, and they're like, why am I getting charged? Yeah. So I've been thinking of going direct on my site. Do you have any thoughts on pros and cons of which way people are doing it? And
I do think that, so Patreon is the newer way that authors, we see a lot of authors that are experimenting with it and not a lot that are yet have sort of found the magic formula. And I do think that it can be a little confusing there because if you're doing the monthly, which, so on Patreon, for those who don't know, on Patreon, you can basically set up your reward levels one of 2 ways. You can say, I want people to become a patron for a monthly fee, for a monthly amount, or they can have an amount per creation. So I'm guessing you've got it set up per creation, which I think is honestly for authors is the better way to go. Because if you're, for somebody like you who is quite prolific and publishes something damn near every month, you might be able to get away with the monthly and people would still be happy to pay it. Whereas if you're an author who's maybe putting out a book every 3 to 4 months, well, then what you're asking me to do is pay $3 or $5 a month when you're not actually giving me anything. I have seen a few authors fantasy authors that are publishing a little more slowly, but they're writing a short story or 2 every month for their patrons. And so that's the way they're sort of justifying that monthly fee. And I think that is less confusing with the payment option. Because, yeah, we have seen some of that confusion where they got the book 3 weeks ago and they don't know that they didn't get charged. What they do know is they got charged 3 weeks later, and now they don't know why they're getting charged. We haven't seen nearly as many people doing Patreon at the reward, at that sort of per creation reward level like that. The ones that are doing it have been using the monthly and have been throwing in like really cool super fan rewards like extra art, fantasy maps, short stories, novellas, things, and keeping them exclusive. You only get them if you're my patron. You don't get them just for being on my mailing list, and you can't go buy the same story on Amazon for a couple of bucks. You've got to be a patron of mine in order to get it. And we actually built features into BookFunnel that will allow you to integrate your account with Patreon so that you can verify, you can create a giveaway on BookFunnel and set a specific Patreon reward level and say, this giveaway is only available to people who support me at the $5 level and above. Then when you send that link out to everybody, if they turned around and tried to share it with somebody else, those other people wouldn't be able to get the book unless they're supporting you. And BookFunnel happily tells them, hey, listen, you could get this if you were supporting. Just click here and become a patron, and you could have this little short story too.
That's fantastically useful. Like, I know a lot of people, I support a lot of people on Patreon, and it's frequently, I'm not entirely sure how to give this to you in a way that's just not incredibly piratable,
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's a great thing to add. One more thing on this sort of topic is, it's been a running gag on the show that I have a tendency about once a year to produce a book for which there isn't really a viable audience. The current incarnation of that is the Pizza Dragon book, but there have been others. And for books like that, where the chances are the only people who would really buy it are pre-existing fans, is it potentially a good idea? Like, is that another opportunity for like selling it yourself via BookFunnel? Like, I'm only going to sell it to the 55 people who really care, so I might as well sell it myself.
Absolutely. We have a couple of authors that are doing that are sort of writing short stories. I don't know how long this work is, that the Pizza Dragon work that you're talking about, but especially when it comes to things like short stories that are really, they are meaningless to anybody who is not a true fan of your work, right? The kind of short story this is a little fun, Halloween adventure that is completely silly and absolutely uninteresting to anybody who is not already in love with these characters and cares about them. So that's absolutely a great place that you can turn around and say, yeah, listen, hey guys, I wrote this little Christmas short, or I wrote this little Halloween short, or I wrote this funny little aside that happens between book 1 and book 2. I'm selling it for $1. I don't want to put it up on Amazon because I don't actually want it to be out there for the general public, but for you guys, I wrote it for you.
I think it's good to emphasize that the exclusive stuff is what's going to really excite them to step outside the comfort zone, maybe. Like, I think some people are just, no problem, BookFunnel, I'm all about that, and sideloading their stuff is easy, But then there's people that are like, I don't want it automatically to appear on my Kindle. So. Sure. But I think they will go the extra mile for the brownie second epilogue, because
the baking brownie epilogue, as we refer to it in the industry.
Yeah, I know that you had mentioned, I think at one of the conferences, that the romance readers' epilogues tended to be like the wedding night or an extra sex scene or something like that. Sure. So that's an option too if your characters don't bake brownies.
Yes. Well, and we actually had a couple of authors who had released the romance, the sort of, I wouldn't say that they were the clean romance, but they sort of cut the steamier scenes out of the book because they didn't want to end up in trouble with Amazon and end up thrown into the erotica dungeon, as it's lovingly referred to. And so they actually pulled the steamy scenes out and kept those separate. And in the book, once you get in, they say, hey, if you are the kind of reader who wants the extra steamy stuff, you can click here and go get the steamier version of the book directly from me. And so they can only get to that link once they have actually purchased the book. And then you can have them either join up with a list, or you can just give them the extra steamy version. Because some readers really do, they like that stuff and they want the extra steamier version. But, at this point, even if I were an erotica reader, I could absolutely understand why somebody would pull those scenes out while publishing to Amazon. Because if you get, labeled as adult only, then you get no publicity, you get no nothing. So they almost want to pretend like you don't exist. And that sucks because there are a lot of readers out there who absolutely love that stuff.
Yeah, and depending on where you go on the scale, I know there's stuff they just don't even allow on Amazon. So it's
Sure.
more than being in the dungeon. They're just going to unpublish your story.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the exciting mailing list acronym that I can't pronounce, I have one more question for people who do get the books. They buy them direct from the author or through Patreon and download from BookFunnel. And let's say it's 3 years later and they email you and they're like, I know I bought this book, but I don't know, where it is now because it's not quite the same as Amazon's little cloud library. Does BookFunnel address that? Is it an easy way for them to re-download it?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime anybody contacts our support, we have records of everything, and leading into the lovely GDPR discussion. But yeah, we keep records of transactions and then the pieces that are necessary to make sure that readers can always get their books. So if they ever come back to us and say, "Hey, I purchased a copy of this book," we can very easily look them up and generate a new link that they can download their book from, and they'd move on. And it happens sometimes. We have readers who contact us that say, I got a new Kindle. I want to copy a few of these books over, or, my dog ate my Kindle. People drop their phones in pools and toilets all the time. We get to see all that lovely stuff. And yeah, our support team knows how to pull all that stuff and help people get their books back. So, and especially with sales transactions, we keep long transaction history on all of that stuff so that we can make sure that anybody who purchased a book is definitely going to be able to get a copy forever.
All right, that's good to know because I've already had cases of readers going like, I know I got that 3 months ago, but I don't know where it is now. And, if you're doing advanced review copies and then putting it on in KU, you're probably removing the link.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to go in a back door somewhere to get it again. Or I've just emailed it to them, I think. But we
have a gifting feature that you can just go gift a book, select a book from a drop down, put in an email address, and send them a fresh new copy of just that one book to that one person. So we have a lot of authors that use that, especially like nonfiction authors. They go to conferences and things, and when they bump into somebody and somebody's like, "Oh my God, I've been wanting to read your book," and they'll pull their phone out of their pocket and they're like, "Tick, tick, 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 there, I just sent you a copy of it. What's your email address? Oh, I just sent you a copy." So they use that little gifting feature to just fire off a copy to anybody that wants one.
Good to know. I didn't know you had that, so maybe I'll check that out myself. Okay, the topic everybody's been waiting for. So we're recording here in May of 2018, and GDPR. Dang it, I even had it written down and I still read it wrong. Could you tell, we've talked a little bit about it, what it is, and should we be concerned? I actually kind of quoted you in my notes that I took at the Sell More Book Show conference. So
yeah,
those who are listening have heard a little bit, but from the dragon's mouth. Would you like to be a dragon?
Yeah, always. Of course. If you could be a dragon, always be a dragon. So
could you just tell us a little bit about it and if authors need to be concerned?
So the biggest thing is it's actually, it's the European Union trying to give people control of their own data and the privacy of that data. And, it gets a little weird because now something as simple as an email address is considered private information, personally identifiable information. But the short version really is, if you're already doing what most authors recommend, if you're not doing anything shady with your email list, you're giving away a copy and you're asking people to join your list in exchange for getting that copy, or you're saying, "Hey, here's a free copy. If you'd like, you can join my list." And then you're ethically emailing those people. You're using a service like MailerLite or MailChimp that offers them the chance to unsubscribe on every single email. They always can just get off their list, or in the case, as the law puts it, withdraw consent. Then you're already doing okay. It's really a law that is aimed at big companies and people who were doing bad things with people's data, taking and generating a list of email addresses by giving them something free and then selling that list of email addresses to a bunch of other people. Authors getting together, in the case of the author world, getting together with 20 authors in a big group giveaway, but every single author in the group gets every email address of everybody who grabbed a book. Well, they didn't want to be on, I wanted that book. I didn't sign up to be on 20 people's lists. I just wanted that one book. So that kind of stuff, no, you can't do that stuff anymore. And BookFunnel has a feature that'll allow you to join in with group giveaway with other authors in your genre and join a sort of group giveaway. But ours have always worked in that way that every book that they take from the giveaway is the list that they signed up for, and they don't get signed up for anything that they don't take the book. So the biggest changes that we made at BookFunnel was to give you options to set up your pages how you want them. And so if you're a US author, you really only have to concern yourself with residents of the European Union. So we built in features that basically say, how do you want us to handle that are those readers that are coming to you from the EU? And there is now, so where it gets funky is there's no case law on any of this stuff yet. This is May 22nd. It actually goes into effect in 3 days on May 25th. And because there's no case law, then there's a lot of people saying, well, I think this, and I think this, and I think it works like this. But until there is actually somebody goes to court and there's case law to back it up, or there is further guidance, most people don't actually know what's right and what's wrong. But we took the advice that we had read from experts and generally came up with, if you're offering a book to get onto your list, you have to do either one of two things. You can't make it mandatory that they sign up for your list in order to get the book. So you can say, hey, here's a copy of the book. You're welcome to it. I'd love it if you join my list too, but you don't have to. You still get the book. So that's on BookFunnel is called an optional giveaway. So you can give away a book and say, I'm going to give them the book, and then I want a little checkbox that says, yeah, they have the option of joining my list if they want to. But what authors mostly want is that ability to say, no, if you're taking my free book, then you at least got to see my welcome email. They can unsubscribe at any time, and a lot of readers will, but they can unsubscribe at any time. But I get to at least send you my welcome email and say hello in exchange for the book. And there is some advice that says, well, you can do that, but it really, instead of get a free book and then get on my list, it needs to be flipped. It needs to be get on my list, and then I'll send you a free book, as a welcome gift to say thank you for joining my list, which sounds like semantics, and it is, but that's the law. So we gave you a switch that just says, hey, if somebody's coming in from the EU, change the language on the page to emphasize joining the newsletter, not getting the free book. And again, it's semantics, but that is what the experts are saying is what your pages are supposed to be doing. And then, we give you the options to handle all that. And you can say that I only want that to happen for people that are in the EU. And then your pages are fine. Statistically, only about a little less than 9% of all the visitors that we see on BookFunnel are coming from within an EU country. So you don't have to change your entire world for a very small percentage of of readers that are coming to you from within the EU. But generally, what I tell people is the people that are panicked about it is, are you doing shady things with people that join your list? Are you, taking their email addresses and selling them to other people? Are you taking them and giving them to your other author buddies and saying, here's a bunch of people you can go email about that new book that you're putting out? If you're not doing anything shady, then it's just a mailing list. They can join your list and they can unsubscribe anytime they want to.
Yeah, I remember being part of a group giveaway like that where I just wanted to give my book away. I was like, sure, here, give it, no strings attached. And then they emailed me at the end of the promo, like, here's a whole Excel spreadsheet of all the email addresses we got. And I was like, delete.
Yeah.
Is that actually even legal in the US? I feel like the canned spam thing was kind of...
Not really. It's the biggest thing that they changed with GDPR is this idea of active consent. Like you can't be tricky. And so this is where the language, can matter. If you are using language on your sign-up page that is misrepresentative of what they're doing, then you can get in trouble for that. But really the point of the law is be clear. You're signing up for my newsletter. This is, and in my newsletter, I send out the occasional discount or freebie and new release announcements, and you can get off anytime you want to. And as long as that's what you're doing, which is the vast majority of authors, we're all just trying to make a living here. We're all just trying to build a list ethically of people that want to be on it. And if you don't want to be on my list, then get off of it. But yeah, we saw a few of those early on from people doing those sort of big group builders where if the reader just put in their email address, they just got signed up for 30 authors' mailing lists. And I think a lot of people quickly learned that that was a bad idea, because readers, as soon as they get those 30 welcome emails in their inbox, they realize, I'm never doing that again. And so you're poisoning the pool, you're poisoning the well for everybody. You're turning that reader against legitimate authors who might actually want those people on their newsletter, and those readers might want to be on their favorite authors' newsletters, and you're making it look like that's a bad idea.
Now, like one of the things, if you use, say, MailChimp and all that, they give you all sorts of advice on what to do, and you can send out. There's even like a recommend. They added a template specifically for this, and it allows people to. The only thing that it really changes is in my observation, is it adds a specific thing. It says they have consented to receive, in my case, email. I don't do directed, targeted advertising and 1,000 other things that I have consent for.
Phone calls, like,
right,
somebody's doing that.
But so basically, like, it seems like what you're saying is, unless you were doing some really shady stuff, or I guess maybe if you have like 100,000 people on your mailing list, even if, let's say, you send out your GDPR email and only say 500 or so people actually go through and add email consent, it seems like you can probably still email everybody, especially certainly everybody in EU, but outside of EU, that is. But it seems like as long as you weren't doing shenanigans, the reply to that isn't really too impactful on your behavior.
No, there were people that were saying that you had to go and get reconsent from everybody on your list. You had to send them, and I've seen these. Some of you have probably already been getting them that say, hey, if you want to stay on my list, click this button and you can stay on my list, and we sure hope you do. And you don't actually, if all you've ever done to build your list is what we would consider ethical practices, you don't actually need to do that. There's not actually a requirement from the GDPR that makes you do that. And in fact, you might be getting yourself into a little bit of trouble, because if there is any reason to think that the people on your list are on there and shouldn't be on there, like you shouldn't, then you just sent them an email that you shouldn't have sent them, because you had gotten them through some shady practice. You shouldn't be emailing them in the first place. So instead, if you have any question, if you feel like you have built your list unethically, then you probably should just clear out the people that you didn't get, that you don't feel you earn. Most authors that we've spoken to, and everybody's in a bit of a panic about it. And so we've been trying to sort of help people understand as much as we can without giving legal advice. We are not lawyers. We have big disclaimers on our blog posts, because everybody has to have that disclaimer. And it's true, though. But the reality is that most of the lawyers are giving their advice, but a lot of it won't really know until we get further guidance on the law from the actual organization that monitors and sets the guidelines. But you don't have to go and reconsent everybody. But yeah, I've been getting those emails for the past couple of weeks now. Hey, we hope you still want to stay on our list. Click here. If you don't, then we're going to take you off our list. And I'm like, this is a good time to clean up the lists that I'm a part of.
Or the ever popular, we're making changes to our privacy policy, and we like to blah, 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 blah. I had like 9 of them in one day.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with any new laws you may have heard of. We were just doing it out of the goodness of our hearts.
All right. Well, now that we've taken care of that scintillating part of the
Everybody, wake back up. Wake up.
We got a few more good questions. We've actually got some that came in through Twitter, so I'm going to go ahead and ask those.
Great.
This one came in back in January, the first time we tried to record the show, and had a little hiccup.
Yeah,
and,
we did.
Damon's been very good about coming back on. We promised him we're recording it this time, so.
We switched to you guys switched to new software and everything.
That's right. We didn't want it to happen again to anybody. All right. So Jen would like to know still, does Damon know what the release cycle for keeping fans happy is for BookFunnel? And how does he suggest shorts over long if you can't put long work out on that cycle?
Well, the faster that you release, the happier readers are going to be, particularly if you're writing in series, or if you're a romance author, if you're writing in world. So there's almost, I don't think there's a speed that any one single author could write and release at that would be fast enough for readers. So that's not the answer that most authors want to hear. But if you're doing, if you're not able to put out releases as quickly as like once a month or once every 3 months, or as often as some of these authors like Baroker over there are spitting out books, then short stories are a great way to keep fans interested and to make readers into fans. Because, so the biggest thing is that somebody gets on your list because they want that free book. And so they go, oh, great, I got a free book. Except that your book ends up in a stack of other free books that are on their Kindle, and chances are good they probably didn't read it. But now they're on your list, and so you have an opportunity to try and convert them into a reader. And the more that they see from you, so if you're putting out a short story, let's just say once a month, really simple. Almost any author I know can take a few hours or even a day, if you're a really slow writer, and write a short story, put a cover on it, do some, if you're fantasy, then do some swirly floopties and, some scrolly looking Celtic knot or something if you don't want to go off and pay for a cover. And then just distribute it to your fans. Just say, hey guys, this short story is just for you. I know everybody's waiting on book 4. Well, this story happens between book 2 and 3. And so there's a little story, a little bit of backstory that they can grab onto while they're still waiting for that next book to come out. And the one of the questions that we get from authors sometimes is that, I've built this mailing list and I don't actually want to talk to them. And the truth is that's the kind of author that I am. Like, I know that I need a mailing list so that I can directly communicate with my fans, with my readers, but I don't actually have a whole lot to say. I don't really want to talk, I don't want to talk about my dogs, or I don't want to talk about my life. I want to tell you about my books, but if I'm not writing that quickly, then nobody wants to keep hearing every couple of weeks that you're still working on it, right? That gets a little old and it gets a little tired. But I can, and when I go to write emails from BookFunnel, it sometimes takes me an entire day to craft the perfect email that is just funny enough, but not offensive, and is not going to hurt anybody's feelings. And I mean, it's just like, it takes a lot of effort because I'm representing me. I'm Damon. I want to sound a particular way. Whereas, if I sat down right now to write a short story in my fantasy world, I could knock out a 2,000 or 3,000 word short story in an hour or two. And I wouldn't even have to think hard about it. The characters live in my head. I know exactly how to write them. And I know exactly how they would respond. I know exactly what they would say. I can write a great short story in just an hour or two. And the thing is that the people that are on your list, some of them want that personal connection with their authors, and some of them don't. Some of them don't care that, your cat is sick. Some of them don't care that you're continuing to work on the book. They only want to know when the next book comes out. But everybody will happily take more story. If you want to give them more stories to read in your world, none of your fans are going, Baroker's putting out a free short story every month. I just can't read another short story. Like, nobody is unhappy that you're giving them more stories. So if you're one of those authors who just doesn't have anything to say to their mailing list, try writing them a short story and throw one of them out there every month, and that will keep them interested. And if they haven't read your books yet, but they see that you're continually publishing little stories that happen between those books and in that world, they're going to be more tempted to go back and go, you know what, I think I'm going to go read that book one. And I know it's sitting on my Kindle along with other stuff, but because you're in front of them and you're putting yourself in front of them every month with new short stories and things that they can follow along with, they're more tempted to actually go back and read your stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's so much effort or emphasis put on like getting people on your list. Give them a free something to get them on your list. And then if you never do anything but try to sell to them after that, they may realize they don't need to stay on your list. Or, and I actually focus so much on writing the next book. Sometimes I don't always remember to do the free bonus stuff, but I've been trying to at least do something like every quarter. And I think you're right. People may or may not care that you saw this cool purple cactus while you were out walking the dogs. May have happened recently. But yeah, they're
Not
always
saying
like,
it did or it didn't.
That's right. But like I was saying, how many people went and downloaded my brownie baking epilogue scene?
Exactly.
And that's the kind of stuff that they're never going to not appreciate you
Sure.
giving them more free content from a world they love.
Right. And I am positive. Well, I mean, like you could probably sit down and you've probably written a book since we started this podcast, but I have no doubt that especially for the worlds that you've been working in for a while, the some of the worlds that you've got 6 or 7 books in, you could pluck any character from that and write a short story in an hour that would make people happy because it is a part of you. That world that you've written in, those characters that you've created, they are a part of you. I can write my characters easily. So yeah, write up a little short story and you can do them anywhere. They can be in the middle of your series. They can be a prequel to the series. They can come as an epilogue at the end of one book or another. And yeah, all readers are happy that you give them a little extra story.
It's just important that you make sure it's a little extra story because in my case, you might aim for, say, a 4,000 word short story and end up with a 40,000 word novella, which is not a terrible problem to have, but it sort of expands the release cycle.
Sure.
All right. So this question actually is courtesy of Jeff. We talked a lot about stuff that authors should be doing. So the question now would be, are there any recurring mistakes that you see people doing that you feel like they could be easily avoided?
Probably the biggest one is what Lindsay just mentioned, building that mailing list, getting people on it, and then never talking to them. Waiting until you only have a new book out. And if you're prolific and you really if you're one of these authors who's able to put out a book a month, whatever size, be it novella, a short story, then by the time they join your list, the next time they hear from you is going to be less than a month away. And then, what they're seeing from you is something new that you've got for them, either a free short story. That kind of stuff is great. But if you're the kind who's, I don't write that quickly. I can't put out a book every month. So you're building up this list. And the first time that, other than your welcome email, the first time that reader hears from you is 6 months later. And it's, hey, I've got a new book for sale. They're going to unsubscribe so fast because, first of all, they don't even remember who you are. They probably didn't read your first book because while they downloaded it for free, you didn't really do a whole lot to sell them on the idea that they might like this book. They liked it for some reason. They looked at your cover was good. They looked at your blurb. They thought your blurb was good. There are enough free books out there that for the most part, when a reader picks up your book, it's because they were attracted to it for one reason or another. The cover, the blurb, something spoke to them and said, ooh, that looks good. So they picked it up, but they picked it up alongside 20 other free books that also looked good. And this is not a new problem. People talk about this whole, everybody's giving away a free book on their mailing list and now readers got too many free books. Nah, 2012, when I picked up my Kindle and everybody else was giving away perma-free books, it was the same thing. It's just they're giving them away in a different way, in a different method. But the whole readers have too many free books, that problem's been around ever since people started putting books up on KDP. Because there were always some authors that were willing to give away that first book. And there were a lot of first in series free. So people were picking up free books all over the place. So that's the biggest mistake is they built that list or they started building up that list and then they never talked to them. And so that was one of the things that we gave in our blog post is if you are that kind of author who you just don't know what to say, then write them a little story. Give them something. And that's great because you're not, like Lindsay said, you're not, every time you contact them is not asking them to buy something off of you. And that's another mistake that is easily avoided. Don't wait and only talk to your readers when you have something to sell them. It smells like a pitch and everybody can smell a pitch coming from a mile away. Give them something sometimes. And then when it comes time for you to give the ask and say, hey, I hope you've enjoyed the 3 free short stories that I've done over the last couple of months. Book 3 in the series is out. And hey, here's that short story from last week that leads into book 3. Now you're giving at the same time that you're asking. You're giving them a lead in and saying, hey, pick this up. Pick up book 3 as it comes out.
Yeah, I love when I'm able to do that, sometimes accidentally, where I have a free story that I wrote and hey, it's about the characters that are in this book this book is out now. You can come buy it if you like this story.
Yeah.
All right, so the next question may be from a plant, I'm not sure, but Matt asks, what cool new features are on the 6 to 12 month roadmap for BookFunnel?
That's not a plant that we put out there. I hate answering this question. I would say the one of the biggest ones that we're working on is going to be a reader library, so that readers, as they redeem books either through sales or through giving through giveaways on BookFunnel. BookFunnel is going to keep track of the books that they've got in a little library so that they can quickly get back to the books that they have. And that's mostly because we see readers struggling with that sometimes. Like I said, their Kindle breaks. And we're able to help them get their books back, but it would be so much nicer if they could just go and do it themselves. We have a lot of refinements coming up in the next couple of months. I don't want to talk about some of the biggest features that we're working on. Sorry, Matt. We're not going to reveal the big features, but a lot of refinements that we're working on to delivery actions. We have some new features that are coming in for that, and then certified mail, which is our advanced review copy delivery feature that we built last year sometime. That's a big popular feature that a lot of people on BookFunnel use, and we have some enhancements and some new things that we're building on that are going to be pretty exciting stuff.
I need to look around your site more. You keep talking about things and I'm like, that sounds cool. I should try that. I didn't know you had that.
We are terrible at advertising ourselves. We sort of do that, like we announce a new feature, we send out an email. It's like, hey, everybody, we built this really cool thing. Okay, bye. And then we forget to remind people and tell people about it later. And so then we get that response a lot. They're like, hey, it'd be really cool if BookFunnel had a feature that did this. We built that 9 months ago. Oh, I didn't know you had that. Yeah, we're trying to get better about that. But that was part of the reason we started the blog, was so that we can sort of do these featured posts and talk about the features that we already have that you probably don't even know you can use BookFunnel for.
All right. Well, I have to ask, this wasn't Matt's question, but I asked it at the conference, and probably 73 other authors ask you at the conference. Is there a plan for audiobooks?
Oh. Yeah, everybody asks us that. After sales, it was the second most requested feature that we've ever had in BookFunnel. And I will say that we're looking into it. We have some stuff that we're working on now, but I can't give too much away right.
All right. Dale asks, aside from helping with newsletter building and selling direct, how else can BookFunnel aid in marketing to wide readers? I assume not wide readers, but
not men of large carriage, but
That's right. That's your own marketing problem, Dale. You got to figure that out yourself.
That is so the direct sales is actually really cool, but I would say the biggest thing that you can do is like we've been talking about, sort of this idea of exclusive content to keep readers interested and keep readers happy. Especially if you're taking a little longer between releases. If you're able to put books out really, really quickly, then chances are good that you can keep readers happy. But you still want to get them on your list, because a lot of them, especially if they're the kind of voracious reader that just reads a lot, you want to make sure that they know when that new book comes out. So you want them to get on your list. You want them to stay on your list. And one of the ways that you can get them to stay on your list is that idea of exclusive content. If you're offering something that they can't get anywhere else, they can only get it by being on your list. They can only get it by being a patron. They can only get it by basically supporting you like a true fan. Then people will stick around. They want those extras, those little goodies. Even if it's something cool like a fantasy map. Fantasy readers love their maps. And so in sci-fi, we've seen authors that are doing sort of not character sketches, but almost like space sketches. Sketches of the rifle that they use in their sci-fi series, the big, the one that all the infantry troops use. And they had an artist draw up like a pencil sketch of how it looks and how it works, and they give that out to their mailing list. Which you don't need BookFunnel to do that. You can just send that out to your mailing list. But those are the kinds of things that we see some authors working on that really make fans happy.
All right, now we've got a question from Juan. He wants to know, any data on using BookFunnel for putting out sample chapters of a continuing series?
I think I don't have a lot of data on it. I think it would work really well if you already had fans that were into the series. I can tell you for sure that authors that put up samples and excerpts as their reader magnet, join my list and get the first 3 chapters, not nearly as successful as people who are giving away even a short story. Even though the short story might be shorter than the 3 chapters they're giving away, people want a complete story. Readers want to, especially if you're going to get into your world and you're giving them a little prequel novella, 10,000 words is perfectly long enough. But they want to know that they're going to get to the end and turn the last page and they get the whole story. Otherwise, we see it sometimes when authors, if you're offering a sample, I will say that you want to make very clear that what this is a sample, or it's a single chapter. It is something that is not a complete work, so that they know what they're getting into. Because if they start reading and they turn that last page and it just falls off, they get pretty upset about it. Usually upset enough to email us and let us know that they're pretty pissed about the fact that they thought this was the whole story and it's not. So we tell authors, please, you need to tell them right up in the description that this is a sample. This is only the first 3 chapters, something like that. Setting expectations, right? It's no different than following tropes in your genre and things like that. You have to set readers' expectations and then make sure that those readers' expectations are met. So we do have a number of authors that actually do serials through BookFunnel. So they are either doing it through Patreon if they're doing paid. We have a couple of them that are basically just doing free serials to their mailing list. So every couple of weeks, every 2 weeks or once a month, they put out the next episode of that serial. The cool thing that they did was that I've seen them do is you get that regular engagement. So every time you email your list, you're saying, hey, here's the next episode of that ongoing serial. So people are following along with your story as you're creating it. It's kind of like having your own little personal Wattpad where you're distributing the stuff directly to your fans. And then the fans love it because they're getting regular new stories, even as you might be working on longer works. You love it because I don't have to say anything else other than here's the next episode. Hey, everybody, here's the next episode. So you get regular engagement with your fans without having to do more than write the story that you're already writing. And then when you're done, you can actually put that whole thing together and go sell it as a book. So your fans got it episode by episode. They got it before anybody else. And a lot of times for fans, that's a big deal. Getting it first, getting it before anybody else got to read it. Everybody wants to be the guy that heard Nirvana in their garage. So I got to read that story back when it was being released episodically via the mailing list. And then when you're done, you slap the whole thing together, put a cover on it, and stick it up on a bookstore somewhere. But serials are really cool, and it's one of those that doesn't work nearly as well through the actual bookstores. Amazon tried their whole Kindle serial thing and they quickly abandoned that. And then, now Amazon pretty much abandons anything, almost everything along the way. Now they've gotten rid of Kindle Worlds, and what was the other one they got rid of recently? I can't remember. There's so many.
Scout.
Yeah.
Scout, that was right. The Kindle Scout program. So they sort of throw spaghetti against the wall, and so far there's not a whole lot that sticks.
Yeah, that's good that you answered that about serials, because that's what Lon's question actually made me think of. I don't think that's quite what he asked, but that's cool that people are doing it. And is there a way for, like, if somebody subscribes and you're already on episode 7, should that just be something you work into the email, like here's all the previous episodes, or is there a serial page that people can send them to?
Yeah, so on BookFunnel, you can create what we call a bundle, where you can bundle up the books on a single page. So, and there's actually really cool little pieces that you can put in, like you can create a bundle page that says, okay, here's, episodes 1 through 6. And if you knew, say in advance, if you knew that the whole serial was going to be 12 episodes, you could actually have all 12 covers sitting on there, and the first 6 would be lit up, and the other 6 are shown as grayed out. So you can't actually, you can see that there's going to be 12 episodes. So then when you send out that welcome email, or when you send out that email for joining, you just send them to that bundle page. And it doesn't matter where you are in the sequence, even long after you finish the serial. Well, now when they click on that page, they're just seeing all 12 episodes lit up. And you can actually set all that stuff up in advance. You can set it up. You could put all 12 episodes up and then tell the bundle page, yeah, episode 1 drops on the 1st, episode 2 on the 8th, episode 3 on the 15th, and then just walk away. And that bundle page will automatically, the new episode will blink and become available as the new date hits.
All right, good to know, because I don't have enough projects. So now I'm like, I want to
start writing a serial, broker.
That sounds fun. All right, last question. You talked about this already, but people may have already, what did he say? Will was asking, what's the best way for authors to use BookFunnel to deliver ebooks sold directly from their site? You guys have several options with delivery actions of varying degrees of difficulty. Mm-hmm. So just to sum up, was it PayHip? It was kind of the easiest one, and then it got harder from there.
Yeah, so the ones that we support, PayHip was the easiest one because you pretty much just go and upload the book and get everything set up, and they give you the page. So then from your website, you would give a link and say, hey, click here to go and purchase the book, and then they would click through and do all of that. The next three are sort of Sells, Shopify, and WooCommerce. WooCommerce is a WordPress plugin that you can install on your site that will let you build your own bookstore right from your own website. So your DamonJCourtney.com, if you want to sell the books directly and have everything sort of stay on your site, then, and most authors are using WordPress, it's pretty easy for people to set up, then installing the WooCommerce plugin will let you do that. And then finally, the PayPal is sort of the DIYer. You want to do everything yourself. All of the platforms that we support, the 5 integrations that we support with delivery actions, they all work in the same way, which is you send them to wherever you're using Shopify or Sells or WooCommerce. You send them to buy the book. They purchase the book. They do everything from that side. And then we get a notification that something has been sold. And we fire off the email saying, hey, here's your copy of such and such. So they all work, all the delivery actions work in that same way. If you're really just sort of poking around at it, I would say PayHip is the easiest. You don't need to install anything. They don't have a monthly fee. You just go create an account and you start uploading. Sells and Shopify are really more like full-throated solutions for building a web store, for digital products, physical products, anything you want to sell. They're big. But they have a monthly fee. You go and you sign up with them, and then you start paying them every month, even if you're not selling something. And then PayPal, we're all familiar with the loveliness that is PayPal. So WooCommerce is probably our most popular, just because indie authors tend to be a bit more DIY. Like, I would rather run the site myself. I'd rather set up my own web store. And if you're familiar with WordPress at all, WooCommerce bundles into your existing WordPress installation, and then you just say, oh, I want to add a product, and you give it a title, and you give it a description, and you upload a cover image, and there, boom, oh, I got a page. And then you just kind of start building item by item, and you get a bookstore, and it all runs off your own website. It's kind of cool.
All right, awesome. That wraps it up for all of our questions. I will link to BookFunnel, of course, and your blog. Is there anything else you want to plug or that you're working on that you want to let us know about?
No. I just bookfunnel.com and blog.bookfunnel.com, which are the main places you can find. If you follow our blog, that's where we have an ongoing series that we're doing about exclusive content. We have some other articles that we're working on, and then every time we have new features and new toys to play with, we always post to the blog.
All right, I will definitely post a link, and you'll have to let us know when you've got your spaceship sci-fi ready to go. Maybe we can get the next interview at the same time.
Absolutely, that'd be awesome.
All right, I feel like we should all go buy a copy. We all owe all the BookFunnel fans in the audience. I mean, I suppose not everybody's subscribed yet, but I've certainly found it useful for my $20 a year. So I probably pay more than that. There's like a mid-tier one, right?
Yeah, there's a mid-list plan.
All right, I think I'm on that one, but it's not very expensive. So check it out, guys, if you haven't yet. Very useful. And thank you so much for joining us tonight, Damon.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad we got it done this time.
I hope so. Joe, is it looking good over there?
It still says recording.
Well, then we're going to count on it. All right.
All right.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
So long, everybody.